Flake girl, 10 minutes away from 11 o'clock. What if you could not use speech to express your thoughts, your wants, your needs, and your ideas? Augmentative and alternative communication, often called AAC, is a system of communication that's used to enhance or replace speech. It can also change the lives of people living with intellectual disabilities and also those lives of their families and carers. At the moment, Developmental Disability WA is working on a project that's designed to put these AAC strategies into practice. Funding's becoming available, and so this dream is becoming a reality, but more help is needed to fine-tune the project. Jaqui Mills, no relation to me, is the project manager at Developmental Disability WA. Hello.
Hello.
Now, Jaqui, you've got some personal experience in communication difficulties. Can you tell me about your son and your experience?
I can. My son Eli is 26 years old and he has a disability called Angelman syndrome, which has some components of autism in it as well. And he can't speak, he can't use words to communicate. And for most of his life, we were told that communication just wasn't going to be possible for him. He wouldn't be able to use a device and he didn't have the capacity to do that. I kept looking though and didn't believe what everyone was telling me. And I found out that it is possible for people like my son to communicate. And we found a communication system called POD, which was designed by an Australian speech therapist in Victoria, Gail Porter. And it's a really good system, but what was more important is I learned about how some people, what kind of support some people need to be able to learn to use these kinds of systems. And I found out that Eli would need to see us using the system around him for quite a long time before he felt ready to use it himself. So what had happened in the past was people were often given devices maybe for a month and expected to be able to demonstrate the ability to use them in that period of time, and then the device was taken away and everyone gave up. So after about 18 months of showing Eli how to use the device, he started using it himself, and he's been using POD for about 5 years now, and it's really amazing some of the things that he can say to us. So a couple of months ago, he told me for the first time in his life that he loves me. That was a pretty special moment. Yeah. And the other thing is he can tell us when he's in pain or feeling sick. So he can go, and he had a problem with his feet recently. We weren't sure what was wrong, but he was able to use his device to tell us it was his feet that hurt, and he was able to get some x-rays and get some treatment, whereas in the past, we didn't know what was wrong with him, and often he'd go without medical treatment because he couldn't tell us.
And to think that he's gone through that for so much of his life, because so-called experts said, oh, Jaqui, he'll never speak, put up with it. And yet you persisted as a mother to find a method of communication. So how does this particular POD system transmit the information from him to you?
So it's in two formats. So there's a book, and there's also an iPad version, and it uses symbols to help the person to communicate. POD's organised in a particular way, which is around the intention of what people want to say. There's been lots of examples before of using pictures and symbols to help people to communicate, but very often just nouns have been used, so different types of fruit or different types of animals, and people could certainly pick up the card that said apple, but it wasn't clear about what they were saying. Were they saying, I want an apple, I like apples, I hate apples, get that apple away from me? And POD is designed in such a way to be very efficient that we can quickly find out what the message is that the person is trying to say.
Now, you at Disability WA, Developmental Disability WA, are looking to fine-tune AAC tools and have it more broadly available in some fashion. Elaborate more on the project and the vision, Jaqui.
Well, the project is to help people to prepare for the NDIS in WA, and we know there are a lot of adults out there who can't speak, who have never had support before, and whose families don't know that there is support available now. Things have changed and there are things that we can do. So our project is around creating awareness in the community and with families that they can ask for communication support, and there is a point to doing that. Nobody is too old to learn to communicate. Nobody is too disabled to be able to learn to communicate. And we can ask for funding for that support, and a whole new world can open out for people. So that's one part of what we're doing. The second part of our project is we're actually creating resources for people who can't speak to be able to engage in their NDIS plan themselves. So to be able to start saying what they want in their lives and how they want their lives to be, and to start to express their hopes and dreams for themselves.
And can things like AAC practices be readily made available for people in remote or regional WA, do you think?
Well, I think this is a really tricky issue, and I'm not sure about in the Kimberley, everywhere in the Kimberley, but in many regional areas in Western Australia, there hasn't been availability of speech therapy to people. So I know in the southwest of Western Australia, in the Albany region, for example, once people reached the age of 7, they generally lost access to speech therapy. So I imagine that this could be a similar situation from what I see in the Kimberley, and that makes things a little tricky for people. I think that's something that we're going to have to negotiate and figure out how to get that technical support in place in those areas.
Now, if people would like to talk more about their NDIS plan and how they might be able to have the alternative communication process worked into their plan, and furthermore, what else they need, who do they need to speak to? Jaqui, how can they do this?
Well, they're very welcome to contact us at Developmental Disability WA. We'd love to hear from them. Our plan is to run some workshops around the state next year, in the first half of the year, which will be sharing information about AAC and also sharing the resources that we're creating for people with complex communication needs. So we would love to hear from people who are interested in learning more about how to do this.
And Jaqui, are you seeing a side to your son that you hadn't seen before with this method of communication that he's using?
Absolutely. He often doesn't give us many clues about what he's thinking or feeling, and when he does now, we're really getting a lot more understanding about him and who he is. So, for example, we're doing some planning with him around preparing for the NDIS and what he wants to do in his life, and he was able to tell us that he wants to go and see the fireworks at the Royal Show this week. And I had no idea that that was something that he wanted to do. We're going to go and do that with him tomorrow night. I think the other thing is he, like a lot of people who can't talk, can experience challenging behaviour. So you can imagine the levels of frustration that people have when they can't tell people the things that they're thinking and feeling. And very often this can come out in other ways. So people can be aggressive, or they can hurt themselves or break things just through frustration. And what I've found now that he's able to communicate more is that he's able to tell us not just when something's wrong, but what's going on for him at that time. So he's telling us that the times when he's more likely to behave in challenging ways are often the times when he's got anxiety about what's happening. So he just doesn't understand what he's going to be doing next, and there's been a change in the pattern of the day. Sometimes he's unsure about what people are expecting him to do. He gets really concerned about who's coming. If there's an event, he really needs to know who's coming. And then other times he just needs the things he loves in his life. So he loves trains more than anything in the world. And he also loves music. And he needs to be able to tell us that he just needs to watch some trains on YouTube or go and watch the trains down at the train station. And now that he can tell us that that's what he wants to do, we're avoiding behaviours happening with him, which is just amazing.
And so completely understandable.
Yeah,
I'm thrilled
cool.
to hear
probably
that
be online.
Life's improved for Eli and your family, Jaqui, through a method of communication that really works well. So good to hear about what your family's up to, but also the work that Developmental Disability WA is doing through better uses and alternative uses of communication for people who need it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Jaqui Mills, and she's the project manager at Developmental Disability WA. You can contact them to talk more about the NDIS plan plan that you want to have with alternative communication, AAC, Augmentative Alternative Communication. They've also got a short survey running at the moment as well, so you can contact Disability WA, Developmental Disability WA.
In season 2017.